Hello, everyone. Welcome to News Extra, and today we're talking about Guns and Hoses, the second annual softball charity game classic that started up last year at Oregon Trail Park Stadium. And this morning I have Jim Lawson representing the firefighter side of things, and Nebraska State Patrol Trooper Courtney Horak representing law enforcement. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for having us.
So last year, after law enforcement beat the firefighters, is there a little bit of chomping at the bit to even the score?
Well, did law enforcement beat the firefighters last year? My mind's a little foggy on that.
As I seem to recall.
I've been corrected. Okay, I've been corrected.
That as a blowout.
I don't recall the score myself, but were they spanked necessarily?
I wouldn't say spanked was the word. There's probably others that would fit that more appropriately,
okay.
But we want that trophy back, certainly.
And of course, this is an effort to raise money for worthwhile causes here in Scottsbluff, Gearing, and Scottsbluff County. Give us some details, if you would, a little bit about this year's game, the second annual.
So the second annual game is on June 29th. And the first pitch is at 4:40 p.m. Mm-hmm. And when you purchase a ticket, and the tickets are very reasonable, that gets you in the door for our game, and it also gets you in the door for the Pioneers game that starts around 6:15 after our game. And
your game is going to be starting up a little bit earlier, obviously, in the afternoon, right around 4:30, as I understand, 4:40.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Now, are there any special rules that take place during this game, as they did, perhaps last year, or is it a certain number of innings? How does that work?
Well, we tweaked up a little bit from learning some things from last year's game, and met with our law enforcement folks, and just to lay some ground rules, some pretty basic stuff, distance from bases and things, and number of outs, and who can bat, the batting order types of things, but nothing outstanding, earth-shattering that's going to take place there. But we're just going to have a lot of fun and play some good ball, and hopefully people come out and support not only the Pioneers, but the area law enforcement and area firefighters.
Yeah, and of course, one of the ways that funds will be generated for this year's charity, which we'll get to in a moment, is T-shirt sales.
Yes.
Kind of explain the T-shirt for this year, if there's a specific design, or what are we looking at?
I actually really like our T-shirts this year. They have a American flag on the back that has a red line for the fire department and a blue line in it for law enforcement. So I like our T-shirt design this year a little bit better than last year's.
And it's a good souvenir to take home after the game for not only the kids attending the game, but for the adults as well, and to have something to remember that by. And hopefully that we'll have a little bit better score this year, but we'll see what happens. And we encourage folks to come out and have a good night of softball, and a beautiful ballpark out there in Gearing, and hopefully the weather will cooperate, and we're looking forward to it.
And as far as the T-shirts themselves, what's the cost on those?
They're $25.
They're $25, and of course, a good portion of that $25 goes toward the charity that we'll be talking about in just a moment. Because there's a little bit of a change from last year in which organization or organizations might be benefiting. And we'll be actually right back in just a moment on News Extra and tell you all about that. And we're back this morning on News Extra, and my guests are Courtney Horak from the Nebraska State Patrol and Jim Lawson with Gearing Volunteer Fire Department. Thank you very much for joining us. We're talking about the second annual Guns and Hoses softball classic, if you will, that's going to be taking place June 29th at Oregon Trail Park Stadium prior to the Pioneers game. Now, one of the ways that we're raising funding is the T-shirt sales. And I understand that's going to be fairly exclusive to those who are going to attend, correct?
It is, yes. We did a few pre-sales that wrapped up today. Those ended today. And then other than that, in order to get a T-shirt, you have to come to the game. And
one other thing, of course, is the owner of the Pioneers, Chuck Heeman, who kind of helped originate this last year, has made a little bit of a commitment if we happen to hit a sellout. Tell us the details on that.
Well, it was Chuck's idea last year to get not only the community more involved at the ballpark, and just a fun place to be at night and see some great sports activity, but as well as to involve our local public safety people, i.e. fire departments, law enforcement officers, and suggested maybe a benefit or a challenge softball game, which he approached the Gearing Fire Department, and we said we'd readily like to play law enforcement. And it just blossomed in its first year, and now we're going to change our not our sponsorship, but our where the proceeds of this go. And last year we had two organizations receiving money from the game, and this year we narrowed it down to one. As Courtney mentioned earlier, we put 6 names in a hat, very deserving organizations, and drew one out. And this year it's the Panhandle Humane Society.
Yeah, a very worthwhile cause to help out with that, and not only the T-shirt sales, but also possibly ticket sales. A portion of that might go to the Panhandle Humane Society, as well as I understand. Is that correct?
Exactly. Chuck has agreed to donate a percentage of ticket sales if we happen to sell the game out.
Which the Pioneers have had a good track record of having sellout after sellout because of the quality of the baseball with the collegiate players that he has here, and so the quality of the softball is going to have to step up to that, right?
Well, speaking for the Gearing Fire Department, we're ready this year. That of course we thought we were ready last year, and but it's like I say, it's a lot of fun and a good challenge, and we've got a lot of younger players coming into the game now, and some of the older ones are going to have to step aside for what we used to do years back, and let them young firefighters and EMTs and law enforcement officers get in there and work together and play together and as a team. No pun intended.
I was going to ask if either side has any ringers one way or the other.
They accuse us of having ringers and bringing in out-of-area people. I think they're mostly talking about Officer Matt Shannon with BNSF Railway Police, but he works Scottsbluff County, and he's a pretty good softball player. So, and then I find it kind of funny. The fire department has been signing up all these new young fire cadets, and then some of them are going to play in the game, I think, too. So.
Well, it just seemed like a good year to recruit some folks and try to. And try to answer to what Courtney just said, that it'll be a lot of fun. And last year I don't think some of the guys appreciated their cars getting towed away, but we're working on that. And certainly a tongue-in-cheek remark, but anyway, come on out to the ballpark and see some good softball.
Yeah, it's all for a good cause and meant to be a really good time, no matter who wins. It's the second annual Guns and Hoses charity softball game taking place before the Pioneers game later that evening on the 29th. And who are they playing? The Pioneers are playing, I can't remember. Right
These folks are called the Badland Big Sticks.
And I can't remember the hometown that they're
I
based
don't recall,
out of,
but
off the top of my head.
Speaking of that, I think we should mention that the Western Nebraska Pioneers are 2018 league champs last year.
Of course, yeah.
So they're taking on all challengers, and certainly the Badland Big Sticks are going to be in town, and we'll see what they can do there.
Mm-hmm. And they're wanting to defend their title without a doubt. So that's the 29th at Oregon Trail Park Stadium. You want to be there about 4:30. First pitch for the softball game begins at 4:40, and you've got about an hour and a half out on the field to avenge yourselves, Jim, and to defend yourselves, Courtney, I guess. Well, thank you very much for joining us on News Extra today.
Thank you.